living on fruits and how to plant your Garden of Eden. How do I plant my 300 rare fruit trees? How to grow your own food forest for having rare fruits, for having health, for having more sustainability, for having a better environment for all of us. Do you know how to plant? Do you know how to grow your own food? Do you know my tips to make a better soil, better plants, better trees? Stay there until the end to learn what I have learned, what I have discovered throughout 8 years of having a Garden of Eden at home. I'm really happy to announce that 3 of my 10 books are now published in English, available on Kindle and print on demand on Amazon. My main book, The Eden's Diet, The Guide to Raw Frugivorism, the original diet. This is the most updated and comprehensive science book about diets. What we have in terms of raw foods, every detail that you need to understand to thrive in a raw food diet, to have more longevity and better health. In my humble opinion, what everybody in the world should understand. The Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery, my most sold book in Portuguese. I'm pretty sure this is the best book on fasting in the world, the most updated in terms of science and in terms of natural hygiene practice. All the books have numerical bibliographical references, so it's not what I'm saying, but actually I can prove it. I quote by numerical references the scientific articles, the name of the scientist, the name of the journal, the scientific journal, the page, the year, and Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove, one of my recipe books with a lot of delicious raw vegan recipes like pancakes, cheese, dulce de leche, crepe, cakes, and a lot of delicious recipes without sugar, without oil, without salt, without anything that would damage your health. You want to learn more, get better in a raw vegan diet, get better in a natural hygiene lifestyle, be more productive, longevous, and healthy, you must read them. Hi, I'm Dr. Corassa, clinical nutritionist from Brazil that have been thriving for almost 20 years in a raw food diet and a natural hygiene lifestyle. That means I eat only raw foods, primarily fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and I do water fasting. I exercise every day. I sleep early. I practice chrononutrition, chronobiology, all the things that we know by science that it can lead you to health. But that also led me to have my own garden with a lot of fruit trees because that is healthier for me, that is healthier for the planet, and also who doesn't want to save money on food, have its own tree so you can actually get the food from the tree. It's so pleasurable, and also have the rarest fruits on your garden for you to satisfy your palate every day. It's a blessing to be able to have your own land and to plant your own food. So I have been planted this garden around 80 years ago, but I didn't pay much attention to it. But for the last 2 years, after my last water fast, you can watch the water fast here on the channel or in my Portuguese channel that have many more subscribers. You can watch the whole video as well in English. So after the fast, I decided to give attention to my fruit trees because they are going to not just nourish me, but it's quite pleasurable to have like rare fruits that you cannot buy anywhere. And they have different phytochemicals that it can fight cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and make me live longer with more healthier and more functionality of my organs. So I'm thankful for God, for nature to create these beautiful living beings that are actually the trees that provide us the fruits, and the fruits that actually healed me and saved my life. So the first thing you need to understand when you start planting your own food is the quality of the soil. Your trees will only grow if your soil has quality on it. So what have I learned is dig a big hole. Don't plant a $100 fruit tree on a $10 hole. That means you have to dig bigger holes but also nourish the soil that you put back. I usually suggest at least 60 centimeters for 60 centimeters for 60 centimeters. 60 centimeters to each of its distance. So it's a big hole and deep hole. And after you took all the soil, here I have a really bad soil. So what do? I buy a lot of really good composted soil. The soil is rich in warm humus, cow manure, and organic residues. Look here with me. So what do? I throw a lot of leaves and dead organic matter, like cut off from like banana leaves and mango leaves and anything that was already composted, or I cut like the grass that I mown, anything that is dead material, I throw in the hole. I also throw a lot of black soil that I bought, and also I throw organic manure, like 70% black soil that I bought, 10% leaves, and 20% cow's manure. But it must be dry already. It cannot be fresh cow's manure, right? Or else you can burn the plant. And also a little bit of limestone. Second thing, water. It's the second most important thing to pay attention to after the soil, because if your plant doesn't have enough water, it will die. The same, if it doesn't have a good soil, it will die. So the first tip for water, you cannot just trust on rain unless you live on the tropics, really close to a rainforest, so it rains a lot. Last time I was in Costa Rica in the rainy season, then I understand why it's called rainforest. It's a forest that rains a lot. All forests close to the tropics, you get a lot of rain. But if you're not there, you have to pay attention to water them as much as they need. Each plant has its own need, so it varies. So it's not the same amount for every plant. So a cactus, as a pitaya, for example, we need really little water. But like a durian tree or a banana tree, the more water you give, the better. You grow better, you produce better fruit. So here I capture the rainwater through pipes to my big water tank. And then I have enough water saved for summer, for example, that I really have to pay more attention primarily to the younglings, to the small trees. When the tree is bigger, the roots can absorb water from really down under. They can thrive better. But when the tree is really young, you need to pay attention to water. For the first day after I plant the tree, I always water it a lot if it's not raining. And I pay even more attention to it when it's the summer. But I also can give you two other tips that I'm not going to talk a lot here. It is earth smiles and swales, ways of capturing the rainwater into the ground. To see more about it, I'm starting to try this at my garden, and I think it will help a lot. You have to have good fertilizers. That is the third and most important tip you have to pay attention to. Or you are going to use synthetic fertilizers, or you're going to use the natural fertilizers. That is cow manure. That way, really dry already. You can also do human manure. I'm not going to talk about the details. I actually do it nowadays. When I use the bathroom, I use a big plastic box. Because of my diet, it's really clean and healthy. My poop is really healthy. So I just let it sit in the sun for a while it's dry, like cow manure. And then you can also use on the plants. But don't use on vegetables. Use on holes for trees or on the feet close to the root of trees, of fruit trees, right? Like, for example, my mangoes here, you can see the size of the mangoes, and we also throw a little bit of cow's manure on the bottom. You have to understand that the roots usually go as far as the upper part. So the mango trees, you can see, they're coming to here, so the roots are actually coming until here, right? I don't need to throw on the trunk of the fruit tree. I can even actually throw the cow manure into here, because the tree will actually be getting the nutrients. If there is not this grass, right? I usually do a crowning around the tree. You can see that we do crowning around the trees, so we can actually throw the fertilizers, and the other plants or the grass, for example, don't steal these nutrients from the tree, right? You can see it easily. Sugarcane. We have a lot of sugarcane planted, and we actually squeeze the juice from the sugarcane here manually in that machine. And then all the pulp of the sugarcane that is left, I throw on the feed of the trees, so they can actually feed the sugars and feed the nutrients from the sugarcane to the plant itself. And then we have a more fertile soil. All the plants that I throw the sugar cane on the bottom, they grow pretty well. They grow better and faster. As I said, while I was still talking about fertilizing the soil, I usually also pee on the plants. Yeah, you can say, oh, that's crazy, etc. I learned from my dad, but the urine has a lot of ammonia and other nutrients for the plant besides having water. So you are actually helping the plant, but for sure, don't pee on vegetables. I'm talking about peeing on fruit trees, right? Not close to anything that you're going to eat, please. Now let's talk about covering the soil. How do you maintain the warmth? How do you maintain the water into the soil? It's a really important part because it's not just watering the plants, it's maintaining the moisture on the soil. So for that, I actually love coconut husks because you can just throw the coconut husks on the top of the plant like this, and it will actually hold the moisture. While the coconut is decomposing, it will also release nutrients on the soil, helping the plant as well. But I also not just throw the coconut and the sugar canes, but these. All the leaves that I get from the grass and from other plants. So you can see that it's all covered. This is actually a shredder. So I throw here coconuts and small trunks of mangoes and other tree coconut leaves. That shredder can shred anything with a 7 centimeter wide. So I can throw coconut husks, I can throw small branches, I can throw a lot of stuff in there. It comes out really tiny, small particles of organic matter. So I can cover the soil and let living organisms thrive in there. Because imagine the soil, if it's too hot and there's nothing to cover, how the microorganisms are going to live there? They end up dying. So if they die, the soil health dies. The soil bacteria is really important for the plants getting nutrients and for having really water and oxygen down under. Or else the soil becomes too dry and becomes too tough. The roots cannot grow and the plant will not thrive. So the soil is really important, so we have to focus on organic matter covering the soil, like would happen in nature. Look at these plants. I planted all of them like 7 to 8 years ago, but they grew so much that they end up what? Creating an environment perfect for the bacteria, because this soil over here, it's way more healthy because of the roots of the plants and because the mangoes, avocados, and jackfruits are covering. We have to recreate nature. So a shredder can help a lot your work on the land. If you're not vegan, you can also use fish carcass and eggs. The eggs, you can just throw them on the floor, or you can blend them in a blender to get fine particles and just throw on the floor. They take a while to decompose, but they are rich in calcium and it's going to make your soil healthier. But fish carcass, if you eat fish, you can open a hole, throw the fish carcass in there and cover it. That will make the soil healthier also. Nursery. Having a good nursery makes your effort a lot less, because after I knew that I could actually grow my small seedlings, fruitlings, these small trees, I can just throw under my mango trees, and with the shade of the mangoes, they will grow much easier, because most of these trees actually will grow in the forest, right? With the protection from the mangoes, they don't get too much sun, so they don't get too much dehydrated. So the water I use for them, it's easier for me to make them grow to a bigger height so I can plant them. Because if I plant them directly into the soil from seed or from a small tree, the tree is like a baby. It doesn't have its defenses, its immune system is weak. But if I grow to a big tree like this, it's going to be much easier for the tree to grow. So what I do, if I buy my small trees or if I plant from seed, I leave it here on these big pots with really good soil. I just water them once in a while. The rain also waters them. And then when they grow to a more mature state, like 1 to 2 years, then I plant them on the ground. So having a good nursery with a lot of varieties makes a lot of difference. Here I have durian, dates, blueberries, sugar apples, persimmons, meringue, cambuca, figs, sempedak, and a lot of other rare fruit varieties that I love, that I want to grow in my garden. The other thing you have to pay attention while planting your fruit forest is the distance between each fruit tree. You need at least 5 big steps between each fruit tree, right? That will probably be 4 meters, 5 meters. I'm not an expert, but I just understand that depending on the variety, to its height, its diameter, you have to have more space between each one. So that's one of the most important parts of pruning. Even more trees that grow too much and too fast, like mango trees, for example, they give a lot of biomass. So it's good for them to prune so you can actually get the fruit. Or else a mango tree can grow so high, but so high that a lot of the mangoes get lost while they fall on the ground or being eaten by animals, and you end up not getting any fruit whatsoever. So maintain a regular pruning basis at least once a year to maintain your fruit tree to maximum of 3 meters height so you can get all the fruit. And also the distance between each tree, the stratification, I think it's called in Portuguese, how much each one will grow. If you plant a lot of the trees that grow too much, you know, that is also an issue. And also you have to think of 2 things: selection fruits, if it's from the seed or if it's grafted. Selection fruits, what do I mean with that? For example, this is a hardened mango. It's a well-known variety created in America, in California, but it's a good mango because it's sweet, doesn't have fiber, tolerate a lot of insects. For example, it doesn't have larvae inside if you don't use pesticides. The Palmer mango, for example, that I have over there, you have to think of the selection fruits, or else you can plant like a mango that is not a really good variety, so it's not really tasty. Go for selected fruit trees. For example, jackfruit. If I plant from seed, each jackfruit seed will produce a different fruit. So I don't know, after waiting for 7 to 8 years of my fruit tree to grow, I will end up harvesting, I don't know what. If it's a really good jackfruit or if it's a really bad jackfruit. So cloning, grafting, you have to think of these things before planting, or else you can get a really good jackfruit. It's like a Russian roulette. You never know what you're going to get, right? And if it's grafted, for example, mangoes, they don't grow as high and as big as usual mango trees does. So that's a really important thing to understand as well. I prefer grafted because the trees will be smaller and you know what variety of fruit you are actually getting it. But I also have a lot of things from seed. It depends on the variety, the plant, etc. The last but not least, irrigation system. I don't have one yet, but I plan to have it. So always plant your fruit trees in line instead of like one anywhere you think of, because my first land that I bought was this 8 years ago, and I planted all, nothing in line. But nowadays I would think of planting in line as I did in my new land. They're all in line, so when you do an irrigation system, it's easier because of the space. You save space to plant more food and also to irrigate them better. But the last is droplets irrigation. When you have the irrigation system, I don't know the name in English if it's droplets, but it keeps like dropping small droplets of water instead of throwing the water through the whole land. So you actually save water and you don't allow other plants that you don't want to grow as well, right? So you just water your own plant instead of the whole garden. So if you like the video, maybe I didn't have the English terms to teach as well, but that was what I learned after 8 years of planting my own fruit trees. That is what I learned after 8 years of, being, in the last 2 years actually, but after 8 years of having a land and trying to plant my own fruit trees. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button for notification, comment below and give it a thumbs up. And also, click these videos to know more. And if you want my help as a clinical nutritionist, I have 10 books published and 3 already released in English, available on Amazon, print on demand, and Kindle. I have 6 online courses, but they're still in Portuguese. I run retreats, raw food retreats here in Brazil in my property, where you have seen it, these fruit trees. If you want to learn culinary, gourmet raw food, if you want to learn the basics, if you want to learn the science of natural hygiene, the science of health through healthful living, and also I can attend you as a nutritionist, consultations online and in private sessions. It's a pleasure to health, much frugal health, and health is produced by healthful living. See you next time.